This series has been so much fun, but today we're talking about forgiveness, and we don't like to always do that, right? Am I the only one? Sometimes we got some bitterness in our hearts, we got some things in our hearts, but I'm going to be real. This is a hard subject to talk about because it's attached to real feelings. If you've been coming over the last 7 weeks, you probably know we talk about feelings. Feelings are okay to have. I believe feelings and emotions are from God. I was talking to one of our leaders yesterday, and I was like, feelings are great. Emotions are great. They're just not good leaders in our life. It's great to feel your emotions. That's like, hey, listen, Jesus wept. The Bible says Jesus cried. Crying is okay. But when we let our emotions lead us and our emotions be the driving factor, we often don't make the right decisions. And so that's what we're talking about today. But I know as we talk about forgiveness, it can also bring up that breakup that happened in our life. As we're talking about forgiveness, it could bring up that person who was there and is no longer there. That person who betrayed us. That person who backstabbed us, because those feelings are real. And I really believe Jesus has called us to a higher standard. And that is to be forgiving. People ask me all the time, Matt, what's the secret to marriage? I'm an expert. I've been at this 8 years. I'm a pro. Just kidding. You can ask my wife. I'm not a pro. But I said the biggest thing when you get married, if you can master one thing, master forgiveness. Because you're marrying a person who sins and falls short and messes up every single day. And if you can be a husband that forgives, if you could be a wife that forgives, if you're trying to out-forgive each other, I promise you your marriage is going to be a lot healthier. And so I'm excited as we talk about this and really get into, okay, but how do I actually forgive somebody? How do I actually forgive? I love preaching. It's so much fun. Been doing it for like 15 years. But I always get nervous when I preach in front of other pastors. My friend Raymond Rojas and his family are here from LA. They're planting a new church in Los Angeles, California. Not real LA. It's like Downey area. It's like, I wishes they were LA. But I want us to understand this Bible verse first. We're in Ephesians, right? And kind of how I like to explain the Bible is some of these New Testaments, that's where we're at. There's Old and there's New Testament. A lot of it was letters written to a church. So you might be like, oh, he's saying forgive. Like, he's not talking about me. This is literally Paul who is authoring it from the Holy Spirit, from God, to a church in Ephesus. And he's writing them this letter, and he just talks about right before this unity in the church, how important unity is. Listen, we're not going to be a church that God's called us to be. We're not going to be a unified church until forgiveness can happen in our lives. Because listen, relationships are messy. Right? It doesn't matter if it's a romantic relationship, a friendship. I know I pitch people serving on teams together. Listen, why we're talking so much about teams is because if you just come to church to consume, you're never going to be who God's called you to be. Because consumer did not exist back then. People built the church and served, and God said, I'll build it through people. So why we're like, hey, serve on a team. It's not so we can get free labor. It's so that you can be in what God's called you to be in. And that's community and friendship and building something together. But Paul is talking about the unity of the church. He's talking about this in 4:22. He says, put off the old self. So Paul just talked about, hey, when you come to know Jesus, your old self is not there anymore. I know sometimes you can be Christian on Instagram and not Christian in real life. But Paul is saying when you follow Jesus, the old you is dead. And in verse 23, he says, be renewed by the Spirit. So he doesn't just say, put on a new self. He's saying you can do that because of the Holy Spirit that lives inside of you. If you're new to church, we believe the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the grave lives inside of you. Is what the Bible teaches. The same Spirit where miracles happen lives inside of you. The same Spirit where Jesus literally turned fish in a loaf of bread to feed 5,000 people lives inside of you. So you're like, God, I can never heal from the pain that I've been through. Well, that Spirit that lives inside of you has done bigger miracles than that. And he's saying this in verse 24, put on a new self. My old self is gone. The Spirit lives inside me. I'm putting on a new self. Now I can forgive. Why can I forgive? Because the old me is dead and gone, like T.I. says, right? The old me is dead and gone. There's a new me. A Spirit lives inside of me. I never thought I can forgive somebody for what they did. I can't, but God can. I can't forgive the person for hurting me, but Jesus already did. What Paul is getting at when he's talking about forgiveness is not being a better person, is being a resurrected person. You know, Easter is coming up and we're talking all about the resurrection all month of April. But the resurrection was not just an event that happened, it's what happens in our life when God lives inside of us. I am resurrected because of what Jesus did. The old me is dead and there's a new me. A me that's filled with the same Spirit of God in my life. So you forgive not because of who you used to be. You forgive because who God has called you to be now. And so the first thing, if you're taking notes, if you have nothing to take notes with, I think there's some notebooks outside. You can tell somebody and they'll bring you one. But the first thing is be honest about the hurt. I've been doing this a while and I've sat down with so many people, and when you're a pastor, you're really just somebody people vents to. Just kidding, we do more than that. But I sat down with some people and they've shared so many things that have happened in their life. And what I've seen, I'm not a therapist. You need to go to a therapist. Coffee with me does not make me a therapist. I took one Christian counseling class. That's it, just one. Go to a real therapist. If you need suggestions, we'll get you on. But if we're not honest, I sat down with people, if we're not honest about our hurt, what we tend to do is push it down. And it gets deeper and deeper, and I almost fell to show you how deep it gets. This thing is just too bulky. I'm just going to move this. But if we're not honest about our hurt, we push it down and down and down, and then it comes out not in the healthiest of ways. If you've been in a relationship in this room, you probably know half the time people are fighting is not even about the issue they're fighting about. They just treat each other like punching bags. And it's the stress from my work, I'm going to take it out on my wife. It's the stress from my family, I'm going to take it out on my wife. And then you forgot about the very thing that you fought about because you pushed it down. One of the ways that we get to forgiveness is first identifying I'm hurt. I've been through some things in my life where I've been hurt. And that's real and that's valid. Because we are emotional human beings. Whether you're in here, you're like, I don't want to have friends. That's because you're hurt. Everybody wants friends. Because we were created to have community. You're just hurt. And so you put a wall up saying you don't want to have friends in your life. Oh, I never want to date anymore. I see it on threads all the time. Oh, dating in San Diego is the worst. I said, I wouldn't know. I came to San Diego for a girl. And I married her. But we have to be honest about the hurt. Paul actually lists out things that probably everybody in this room has dealt with in their life. The first one is bitterness, he says. And bitterness is a deep resentment that settles in your heart when pain is left unresolved. Come on, I'm not the only one in this room who's been bitter in my life. Bitterness can just sit in our heart. I think the modern language Paul would say is pettiness. There's some petty people in this world. Don't be petty. That's just unresolved pain in your life that Jesus can bring healing to. Bitterness. See, the other one he says is wrath. Explosive emotional outburst where bottled up pain suddenly erupts. Come on, that's like, you ever like shaking up a soda and that's how a lot of people function in their life. They've been shaken up by hurt until they explode. And then you're trying to explain, no, I didn't mean it. It wasn't you. Anger, a steady, burning frustration that keeps the offense alive in your mind. Clamor, loud conflict, and constant arguing that spreads the hurt to others. Slander, tearing somebody down with words in order to justify your resentment. And malice, a hardened heart that begins to desire harm, revenge, or payback. Pretty much what every movie says to do. But Paul is naming these things. Not just to name them, but he knows we are human beings. And these thoughts go through our mind. And remember, Paul is saying this after he just said, the old you is dead. The Spirit lives inside of you. Now there's a new you. Now release these things that you've been holding on to. Release the bitterness. Release the anger, the malice, the clamor, the slander. And why I defined those, I didn't know what clamor meant. So I said, let me give a definition for each. That's supposed to be funny. I wasn't good at vocab. But bitterness grows inward, but eventually explodes outward. If we don't deal with the bitterness in our heart, it's going to explode out of us at other people. And then we're sitting there wondering why we're not in a relationship or why we don't have friends. It's because we never dealt what was inside of us first. We've never dealt. If you want to be successful in relationships in your life, learn to deal with the hurt in your life. Learn to deal with the pain in your life. And this is the pathway. Another way to say is unhealed hurt turns into destructive behavior. Unhealed hurt turns into destructive behavior. Hebrews 12:15 actually says this, see to it that no root of bitterness grows up and causes trouble. Because bitterness is that there's a root to it. It's a weed that is growing. That's got to get pulled out. Roots grow underground. I know that because Saturday mornings my parents used to make me pull weeds. Anybody else? I said, Mom, Dad, can't we just hire somebody to do this? And they said, we hired you. I was underpaid severely for the amount of roots. But roots grow underground. You don't see them immediately. Some of us got bitterness in our heart right now that we've never even seen before. Because roots grow underground. And if it's not addressed, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know about you, but in all of my years of landscaping, which was like 7th grade to 12th grade, and then I moved away so I didn't have to pull weeds anymore. That whole time in my expertise, there became weeds so big that I could no longer handle it on my own. We had to get some experts there to dig so deep because it got so big that I couldn't cut it. Some of us have roots of bitterness so deep in our hearts that now we can't even deal with it anymore. It's gotten so big. And you're like, God, I need you to remove this bitterness. It's too big for me. It affects your relationships, your outlook, your joy, your trust, your faith. It's almost like this analogy of a backpack. And when you get hurt, there becomes a heavy rock in there. You get hurt again, there's another rock, another rock. So many of us are so stressed out because you've been carrying all this weight that caused from bitterness. You're like, my back hurts because it's been so heavy on you. And when we understand that we're hurt and we need healing, that gets removed. The second thing is understanding what forgiveness really is. We have to understand what forgiveness is. I've identified, listen, I got a problem. I got a bitterness problem. I'm a little petty. But we got to understand what forgiveness really is. Paul says in verse 32, forgiving one another. And it comes from the same word as grace. You can't understand forgiveness without understanding grace. Paul uses literally the same Greek root word, meaning grace. So forgiveness literally means to extend grace. This person they don't even deserve forgiveness, but I'm going to extend grace to them. Extend grace. Listen, you've been hurt. I've been hurt. We've all been hurt. God's called you not to hold on to hurt, but to extend grace to people. Can I tell you what extending grace actually means? It actually means I'm not going to hold this over their head anymore. Some of us need to experience that in our lives first. Because we say we forgave somebody, but in our minds we never really forgave them. You forgave them with your words, but not with your heart. You said, oh yeah, I forgive you, it's all good. And then you go home and you're still mad at that person. When you actually extend grace, you don't hold it over their head anymore. When you actually extend grace, you're not continuously bringing it up. When you actually extend grace, you're not having those same thoughts that you previously had about that person. You have fully released grace into their life. That's what we're called to do. That's what Paul's saying it is. We're going to extend grace. Another way to say it is we're going to cancel the debt. We're going to cancel the debt. We're going to cancel whatever they put in your life is now been forgiven. Forgiveness is not forgetting or pretending it didn't matter or just building immediate trust or automatic reconciliation or staying in abuse or removing wise boundaries. But forgiveness is releasing your right to make them pay. It's releasing the right. Listen. You probably heard it. I forgave, but I didn't forget. That's good. And boundaries are okay around people. Don't be a victim of abuse and just let people continue to hurt you. But it means their debt's been canceled. About whatever happened in our relationship, I'm no longer going to hold it over your head. I'm going to learn from it. I'm still going to have boundaries. That's good. That's healthy. But I am not going to let unforgiveness and bitterness lead my decision making. I'm going to let forgiveness and grace lead. Because that takes us to the next thing. Before we go on though, I want to say forgiveness is not pretending that it didn't hurt. It's choosing not to collect the debt.
That's good.
It's not pretending. When we pretend, we're just putting some makeup over that unforgiveness we have. Putting some makeup over that bitterness. But I'm not going to collect the debt. Today, I want us to get to that point in our minds. No matter who's hurt me, I'm not going to collect the debt. I'm not going to try and get them back. I'm just going to move forward and set up boundaries in my life. And the third point is this. Look at how you were forgiven. Every person in this room has been forgiven in their life. As Christians, our responsibility is to be like Jesus. If Jesus forgave me, that's how I can forgive somebody. If Jesus forgave me of my sin, that's how I can forgive somebody for whatever they did to me. I get it. People in this room have been through some hard things in their life. There's people in this room have been through abuse. There's people in this room that have been through really, really hurtful things. But just as God has forgiven us, just as God has forgiven that person, our job, our role as followers of Jesus is to forgive that person the same way Christ. I'm thankful God does not hold things over my head. I'm grateful, he said, God didn't just say, oh, I forgave you, but you remember how you acted? God doesn't hold anything over my head because that's not true forgiveness. God says there's new mercies every morning. God's extended grace into my life no matter what I've done. And he's now the way that I have forgiven you, you can now go and forgive. Romans 5:8 says, while we were all sinners, Christ died for us. God forgave you when you were guilty. God forgave you when you were running, when you were rebellious. Forgiveness is expensive. What did it cost? It costed Jesus his life. And Jesus now gives that to us freely to forgive other people. The kind of church that we're building is a church that forgives easy. Because when you build community, when you build friendships, again, this is not a church I can sneak in and sneak out. Make sure you get connected. I'm going to just drag you up to somebody and say, hey, meet this person. Forgiveness is expensive because it cost Jesus his life, who's God, who lived perfectly. If you find forgiveness hard, just remind yourself of that. God, I don't know how I can forgive this person for what they did, but I know how you forgave me for what I did. The times that I betrayed you, the times that I've sinned and fallen short of who you called me to be, that's how I can forgive other people. I can forgive because I've been forgiven. If I don't understand that peace, I can't operate in forgiveness. If I don't understand the grace that Jesus gave me, I can't operate and give that grace to others. It starts first with what Jesus did on the cross. It starts first knowing that I have messed up. I've fallen short, and God said, I love you anyways. Said, I forgave you anyways, even though I didn't deserve it. Listen, there's some people we need to hit up today and say, God put you on my heart, I forgive you. Because if we don't operate in that, it's going to cause that weight to stack up on us. And Jesus did not die so you can still be a slave to your bitterness. Jesus did not die so that you can just be stuck in that same place. Jesus died, and now you can go forgive. And you can give that freedom to other people. The cross reminds us that we live by mercy. We live by grace. And it's a hard place to get to, but you have that Spirit of God living inside of you. So we gotta trust God to get us to that place. And if you're new to church, we call this the gospel. It's the good news of what Jesus did, who loves you so much, who lived perfectly on this earth. He died on the cross so that you can live in eternity with him. And what we talk about at Easter, what we're going to be talking about is the resurrection. Jesus did not just die, but he rose again. Because it's not that great if Jesus just died. It's that there's healing and hope and love because he resurrected and defeated death. The place that you deserved on the cross, Jesus took your place on the cross. He said, yo, Matt, because of what you did, you deserve death. My standard was here and you were here. But I'm going to take your punishment and your pain and your debt and everything that you deserve. And I'm going to go on the cross. I'm going to die for you. And I'm going to resurrect again and give you eternal life. Listen, if Jesus can do that for you, if he can do that for me, we can forgive anybody in our life for anything. That is the true reality. And I don't know about you, I don't want to just be stuck as a slave to bitterness. I want to be free and fully free to forgive. If you've never made a decision to follow Jesus before, maybe you're like me. I grew up in church, and I made the decision about 35, 36 times to follow Jesus. I remember I would be at camp, and I would come up to the front. I would raise my hand, because I was the only child and I liked attention. That was the real reason. And I'd say the same prayer every time, but my actions never changed. My life never changed. But when we truly give our life to God, remember what Paul says, the old me is dead. There's a new me. I want to live in this. That doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean that. But it means His grace. His grace makes me up to the standard that He has put. God set a standard. I'm down here. But His grace has said, you are good enough. And so if you've never made that decision to truly follow Jesus, how we do it here is there's a connection card on your seat, and you can mark that today I'm giving my life to Jesus. Maybe it's for the first time. Maybe I'm recommitting my life to Christ. Maybe I fell off and I want to get back on. Maybe I went off track and Jesus is bringing me back on track today. Why we do it on a connection card is because we love to connect with you about it. Not just make a decision and skip out like, I raised my hand and nobody saw me. But we want you to make a commitment, and we want to walk with you on commitment. And that's why we tell people to join a team and join a group, because so many people come to church and then they leave, and there's this word we use called discipleship, right? Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. And I believe every person needs a leader in their life that can know what you're going through and can walk with you and pray for you and call you higher. It's somebody who's like, hey, I'm just going through this. I need help on forgiving this person. How can you help? Can you help guide me in that? That's why we do teams, because every team has a team leader that is accountable to that person. And so we're like, hey, join a team. It's not because of that. It's part of how we disciple people to help you grow in your relationship with God. So you can mark that on the card if you're interested. I'm going to pray, though, for every person who made a decision, and then go into a couple announcements, and then we're done. But dear God,